And here we go.
Sports!
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, that's enough. Yeah.
Hey guys, there is someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
Look, we're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
We are loaded up as news is happening in February. That's not always the case. A lot to get to today. So if you're already on board, please click the like and subscribe button. Who should be the Vols GM? We'll discuss that. Some unusual names, as you have a lot of programs hiring outside the box. The latest to do so was Oklahoma, who hired Mark Nagy, who was the senior executive director of the Senior Bowl. I don't know that he was a senior executive director, but he's the executive director. I don't know if he's senior or not. Seems like a young guy to me. I'll tell you who the Vols GM should be, and it's a name you know. Also, spring practice preview. Hot or cold on Tennessee's offensive lineman this day in Tennessee sports history. The NFL Combine does begin. Who will perform the best for the Vols? Is Rick Barnes being too nitpicky in some of his comments about Chaz Lanier? Yes, and I'll tell you why. And the SEC won't be able to have all four things in future formats. One has to go. A 9-game schedule, annual Big Ten challenge games, traditional rivalry games, and a no minimum number of automatic college football playoff qualifiers. So we'll delve into that. A lot going on the program. Welcome on board for those that are already there. Good morning, Steve. Please hit the like and subscribe button, as we do have a lot going on, and I realize that I need a haircut. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I am good. I want to say before we get started, RIP to Gene Hackman. Did you hear about that story this morning?
No, what happened?
His wife, and their dog were found dead in their house. No foul plays expected, but his wife was 30 years younger. So I'm not so sure that, I don't know, something happened.
Yeah, that sounds weird. I overheard somebody talking about that in the gym, actually, but I didn't know it was Gene Hackman. That's horrible.
Yeah, it is.
So prayers to the family. And
he was 95, so for him, you celebrate the life, but his wife's 64 and the dog. I mean, those are kind of sad. You know what I mean? You hate to say that, but it's worse when younger people pass away. It just is.
I won't argue with that. Only the good die young is what they say. All right, so why Nebraska canceled the series with the Vols? Cowardly or smart? Let's go ahead and get to today's tough question, which is right now, and it's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, today's tough question, brought to you by Banks & Jones, is simply this. Nebraska, were they cowardly or smart for canceling the home and home series with the Vols? Because it's left Tennessee in an incredible pickle. We'll talk about this a little bit later, or maybe we'll just talk about it now. Tennessee doesn't have a Power 4 opponent that they can schedule. They've already scoured the nation and try to find a home and home. Now, the SEC does require that you have a Power 4 opponent, which would be ACC, Big 10, Big 12, and the SEC. That's probably not going to happen. So here are the options, as heard from Daddy White. And when you talk about the options, none of them are very good, to be real frank with you. You have an option of you can play a home and home with a non-Power 4 team, non-Power 4 program, and that would require a that would require an exemption from the SEC. Then on the other side of that, you have playing a neutral site game, which has all the excitement of, I don't know, a wet blanket. So, Caleb, let's start with Nebraska. Were they cowardly or smart for canceling that series? And when you get a chance, we'll go ahead and make that the poll question.
I think they were smart, and I'm going to break down exactly what happened. So this comes down to two reports, and I'm going to quote them both. Pete Thamel reported on ESPN just yesterday that he thinks it comes down to Nebraska just didn't want to play the series. Now, remember, guys, the pretext Nebraska gave was they wanted 8 home games the year that they were set to visit Tennessee because their stadium renovations that year, so they were going to have fewer seats. But Pete Thamel just straight up said, no, they didn't want to play the series. And he said the one piece of empirical evidence is the 12-team playoff indicates murky rewards for a tough non-conference schedule. And Pete Thamel brought up Indiana last year, which played a horrible non-conference schedule in the Big Ten, and then played the worst Big Ten schedule and was rewarded for it for getting into the playoff. So then Matt Rule, Nebraska's head coach, came out recently and all but admitted that they didn't want to play that game. His exact quote about playing major non-conference games was, quote, "Why would you ever play one of those games? If we're being completely honest, I'm at a point in life where in my 4th job and after getting fired in the NFL, I kind of say what I feel nowadays and I could care less. Why in the world would a Big Ten team who's already playing 9 conference games, why would you ever play one of these games? You look at a lot of teams, and this is not anti-SEC, but there's some SEC teams last year that only played 3 away games in another team's stadium. 3. We're in a league where some years you have 5 Big Ten home games, some years you have 5 on the road. You have to go on the road 5 times in the Big Ten with no like Florida, Georgia, and a neutral site." And he goes further. He says the College Football Playoff Committee, they proved to us this year when they did the seeding and all this stuff that early season wins didn't mean a thing. That really was, at the end of the day, what you looked like in the last month of the season. That's what it all proved to us. And when I say what it looks like, it's really good how your offense, it's really how good your offense is. If you're scoring points and blowing people out late in the year, you're going to make the playoffs. We beat Colorado. That was the same weekend that Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. That was a huge win for us. That was a huge loss for them. They made the playoff. Obviously, we did not. So I don't know why. I don't know what the incentive is unless the SEC and Big Ten get together at some point and say, we're doing this, we're doing that. Everything he's saying is absolutely right. There was no reward. There was no punishment for Indiana last year. And I'm just going to bring this up to you guys real quick. Indiana's schedule last year, in case you guys wondered, their non-conference schedule was Florida International, Western Illinois, and Charlotte, to complement playing 8 of the 9 worst 10 Big Ten games. If you're Nebraska, why in the world would you play a premier non-conference game at this point, given the format you just saw that Indiana got rewarded with?
Now, this is why the SEC needs to go to a 9-game schedule so they take it out of the individual schools' hands. And I'll side with you on Nebraska. They play a 9-game schedule. Those are theoretically non-tough games, although we could argue how tough the Big 12 is, but nevertheless.
Big 10, you mean?
Big 10, excuse me. We could argue how tough the Big 10 is. I think it's top-heavy, but I don't know that you're really playing 9 difficult games like you would in the SEC. But let's not get caught up on that. I want to flip it to Tennessee's side. Had Tennessee canceled this series, it would have been cowardly because they play an 8-game conference schedule. So I'll go with you on the Cornhuskers. I'll defend the Cornhuskers with you. But I'm curious what you think if this were Tennessee to have canceled the series like they did against Army. It's not the same, but they've canceled series before, and it's not a good look for the most part. But had they canceled the series, would have been a good move for Tennessee? I'd say absolutely not.
I still say good move for Tennessee for 2 reasons.
No way.
Wait, for 2 reasons. Now, the imbalanced conference schedules, I will say it doesn't really matter. But there's a bigger imbalance between in the Big Ten than the SEC. If you play the bottom half of the Big Ten schedule, Dave, there's no way to play an SEC schedule and not run into a few tough teams, right? Maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think I'm going to oversimplify this. If you're playing an 8-game SEC schedule, you're playing 6 teams that you're either an underdog to or it's within 10 points. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Big Ten, for one of the premier programs like Ohio State, you're probably playing 3 teams like that. Is that fair?
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. Indiana can't get the draw. It's impossible to get the draw in the SEC that Indiana got in the Big Ten. That's not possible in the SEC. It can still be easy. Like Texas got about as easy of a draw as you could possibly get. It was still a much tougher schedule than Indiana's. So because of that, I think an 8-game schedule is more justified in the SEC than a 9-game in the Big Ten for the most part. And I just got to add, I'm sorry, again, I still think it's justified because of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. They didn't value anything at all when it came to strength of schedule. It was, I mean, literally, they threw it out the window. There's no scenario where, there is no scenario where they had certain rankings and teams belonged where they did. And with that in mind, I'm sorry, I got to say that I would not blame Tennessee if they nix it, even though it's 8 conference games. Because I think, look, I've said this. I think they should ditch the Syracuse game this year. They should be ditching every Power 5 game possible until the committee resets its formula.
Well, now theoretically they can't because the SEC requires you to play a Power 4 opponent. But what we're finding out with this Nebraska cancellation is Tennessee may not be able to uphold that requirement. And that's very likely going to be the case. So I kind of laughed out loud that Alex Golish said, how about a home and home with South Florida? That may very well happen. A non-Power 4 opponent. That could happen. Don't be surprised. What I think will end up happening is you'll have a neutral site game. And I'm so sick of the neutral site games. They're so antiseptic. They're just, they don't do anything for me. I understand the old argument of you want to be in Charlotte, you want to be in Atlanta to get a recruiting advantage. But Caleb, I think that's overblown nowadays. The world has shrunk with social media. And I think kids know everything they need to know about a school. They don't need to see them. And they might not even go to the game, for goodness sake. That being in Charlotte or being in Atlanta gives you a little bit of a recruiting advantage, but not anything that I would stroke a big check over.
Well, you're right. The promoters of those events need to stroke the big check. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do that anymore, particularly with, so let's go back to like 2017 when Alabama played Florida State or something like that. Chick-fil-A and the preseason, Mercedes-Benz Dome, they were going to open up the checkbook and give a lot of money for that game, right? Because there was major college football playoff implications. Are any promoters going to, hosting one of these neutral site games, are they ever going to pay top dollar for a game like that again when there's not that much of a college football playoff implication for it?
Nah, probably not.
So you might as well do a home and home at that point, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Home and home. Who are some Power 4 schools? Non-Power 4 schools, that you would like to see Tennessee take on? So, actually, let's just open it up to the first couple that are on our message board. That's who we're going to go with. So we'll shift a little bit. We'll discuss a couple of programs that Tennessee could bring in for a home and home. I want to go ahead and say South Florida is one of those because I don't think that's a bad idea whatsoever. And today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott.
All right, so let's make it a poll question, and this is very unofficial, but I want to put South Florida up there as a home and home. And then we had someone on the message board. Let me go to that so I give them proper credit. Derek says, call Dion. Dion's the type of guy that would make things happen. Now, according to Danny White on a recent appearance on WNML in Knoxville, there's not a Power 4 opponent that has, because you have to have the same week, not just an open date. So Colorado wouldn't be an option unless they move something around. The other one I would like to throw out there is Memphis. because Memphis, perhaps, Caleb, and you can speak to this being a Memphian, that could perhaps resurrect the basketball rivalry. Perhaps. I think that's a little bit of a reach, but I don't have a problem with there being a connection there. I feel like that's always been undervalued and underplayed. And I am not going to put Arkansas State on there. Unsung says, is making fun of my hair. He says, I look like a hippie. Yeah, I need a haircut. Off topic, Dave. Will you grow a mullet for this upcoming football season? I will agree to do this. I will go ahead and go on record. Starting with preseason camp, I will grow a mullet until Tennessee loses a game. How about that?
I'm not a fan.
Well, it's probably going to be the Georgia game in September, so it wouldn't be the end of the world. Super chat, Timothy, read it, Caleb. It goes to Quincy Calhoun's college fund.
Tennessee is afraid they'd get beat up and beat by Army. Unfortunately, the last time they played an academy, a great player got hurt, Inky Johnson. Yeah, because they play the triple option. Let me throw in a couple of home and homes real quick, because you said Colorado and Memphis. I'm with Derek. Tulane. Going to New Orleans and back. I mean, like that's not a bad situation to go down to New Orleans.
Is that really going to be our fourth school? We've got 3 awesome schools, and we're going to throw Tulane in there?
You threw Memphis in there. No, we only have 3, Colorado, Memphis, and Tulane.
Right. So the 4 – oh, no. We've got South Florida.
Oh, that's right, South Florida.
I love it. I love the Dion thing. I think he'd shake things up and make it happen. I think he'd just call and say, we're going to do that.
All of these are recruiting moves.
Colorado is Power 4, Big 12. We've kind of opened it up a little bit just for coolness.
Yeah,
I believe Dion would make it happen.
I think he would too. They don't have to do one like some people would say Georgia Tech for Atlanta recruiting, but you already played Georgia, so like you can go to Atlanta anytime. You don't really have to play Georgia Tech. No, I'm gonna go those 4. Yeah, and it's all recruiting based. South Florida, which it's not in South Florida. And still always drives me crazy.
I know. And it's campus covered bowl practice there. It's weird. You're in Tampa.
Right. So yeah, South Florida, Colorado, Memphis, and Tulane. And the reason all those are relevant is because you can either get into a place for recruiting or the exposure of Colorado would help you. So yeah, my vote on those would probably be Colorado, because of the Dion and the hype that would come with it.
Well, give me the 4th so we can fill out our poll question on
We
YouTube.
already got it.
Oh, who are the 4?
I gave you Tulane. I'm sticking with Tulane. Colorado, Memphis, Tulane, USF. I want to go to New Orleans.
You just took over. You just absolutely hijacked the poll question.
You named the first 3. I got to name 1.
Oh my goodness.
I took over the poll question. And Tulane is not a bad one. Dave, how many times have me and you both agreed Louisiana, like per capita, is probably the best state in the country with like raw NFL talent? Like just freakishly athletic people.
Okay, you're winning me over with Tulane a little bit.
Like, we've talked about this before. You can track this with the NFL. Like the most freakishly athletic war daddies are like in the South. We always talk about that. Wouldn't you agree it's on another level in Louisiana? Like there's the South versus the rest of the country, and then there's Louisiana versus the rest of the South. I mean, they're another level of freakishly athletic.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Caleb. If you did that, is it more from a recruiting perspective or a fan travel perspective?
Recruiting. You want to get into, I've been saying in the NIL age, LSU doesn't have a lock on that state anymore. You want to get into Louisiana. You want to get some of those kids.
See, I really think it's both. I think you've come up with a good one now that I give it a second thought, because there's a lot of ties between Tennessee and the city of New Orleans with the Sugar Bowl in '85. And I think there are a lot of people that would make that very easy trip to New Orleans, and you have the ancillary stuff going around Bourbon Street and all that. So I think it makes sense on a couple of different fronts. I would actually argue it makes more sense from a fan perspective, because the fans are getting gypped out of being able to go to Nebraska and host Nebraska. And there are a lot of fans, Caleb, I know you look at it pragmatically, and I appreciate that. But you look at it pragmatically as what's the easiest way to get to the playoffs. There's still some fans that would like to throw the dice and see what happens against a Power 4 opponent. So Tulane, how was Tulane last year? Were they any good? I don't know.
They have a decent program right now. Tulane is kind of like one of those where they're a good program for their level. Yeah, they were 9-5. They made it to the AAC title game. So they're not. I mean, that's not bad. And you got to remember, like a school like Tulane, it's kind of like I talk about with Louisiana recruiting. LSU gets their pick of the litter, but Dave, you know this as well as I do. If you're at one of those smaller schools in Louisiana, like Group of 5 programs, to compete on your level, don't you just need gas money to go get some high school guys?
Pretty much. 30 seconds from our friends at Double D Piping before I tell you who Tennessee's next GM should be. Off the Hook Sports.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
What the H?
Wow, I've never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
I don't know if this is going to happen, but it's happening elsewhere. It's happening at Vanderbilt, where they made an unusual hire for a general manager position that will basically oversee talent evaluation and will oversee NIL expenses. So they did so at Vanderbilt with Barton Simmons, who we've had on the program, and we might have tomorrow, as a matter of fact. I'll go ahead and shoot him a text later on today. He is Vanderbilt's GM. And if you're wondering what a GM is in college football, well, you're not alone, because it's new. And now you have Oklahoma hiring Mark Nagy, who is the former executive director of the Senior Bowl. He's worked with a lot of NFL teams. He'll be Oklahoma's GM. So, Caleb, let me start with this. Does Tennessee need to hire a GM?
Yes. Absolutely, like 1,000% they need to hire a GM.
Yeah,
I don't even think it's a question.
Yeah, they lost 14 guys to the transfer portal, and Ricky Gibson's playing games with them. They need a GM. Period. End of discussion. There's too much going on. Now, do you think Josh Heupel would actually hire a GM? Because he seems a little insecure, perhaps even paranoid, to do such a thing.
If he did, it would just be someone who would do exactly as he wants and to take the load off him. Honestly, I mean, that would be the problem. It would be somebody he promotes, like an analyst that knows what he wants to do, and that would just do that work for him because he's got so much else going on.
Okay. Here's who I'm hiring. I'm hiring Brent Hubbs, and I think Brent does pretty well with VolQuest, so you might have to stroke a big check for him, but. If he won't do it, Austin Price could perhaps do that. You have the ties in recruiting. You have they're both smart, hardworking individuals. I believe that they would be able to handle the math of NIL and be able to do that. I don't think that would be too difficult. And I think they're both obviously Tennessee fans, so they would probably lean towards accepting the job. It's a really non-traditional move, but I think there's also probably a level of trust there, more so with Brent than Austin, because Brent does a lot of Vol Network stuff. So I'd say he has a closer relationship to Josh Heupel. And I think Josh Heupel would trust one of those guys, Caleb. And this is probably going to happen. And it needs to happen sooner than later, because Tennessee right now does not want to get in the position, Caleb, and we talked about this yesterday, you don't want the AD making coaching decisions. You don't want the AD saying, hey, Josh, you're doing a great job, but lost 14 in the portal again, and you've got guys right before spring practice saying they might leave. You need to hire a GM. You don't want him sending down that order, do you, Caleb?
No, God, no, not at all.
So Josh Heupel, I would absolutely encourage you to no end to make this sort of move. Now, if you don't think it's Brent or you don't think it's Austin, that's fine. But there is too much going on, and you can hire all the extra assistant coaches you want. But here's the issue with that, Caleb, is
These extra coaches are going to be asked to do what? Coach and recruit. Recruit. So you don't want them doing that and dealing with NIL money. Besides that, that's probably not their skill set. Let's be honest. There's a lot of reasons why our football coaches in high school were driver's ed teachers. They may not be great at math. I don't think that's going out on a limb, Caleb, is it?
Dave, football coaches are among the brightest people we know. How dare you disparage their intelligence? I have never in my life ever gone after such a bright group of men like football coaches.
Cooper Mays here. Like and subscribe.
Thank you. All right. So sometimes when
I totally agree. I totally agree.
When I don't know how to respond to Caleb, I'm just going to drop Coop in there to remind you to like and subscribe. Have you hit that like button? We greatly appreciate it. On the super chat, Timothy says,
negative ghost ride pattern is closed. I would ask Cutcliffe. I'm with Timothy. I've been a David Cutcliffe fan from the start. I think David Cutcliffe as an evaluator is as good as you could possibly get. Honestly, I'm a huge fan of David Cutcliffe.
Agreed. At this stage in his life, he's not going to do that. I mean, he's an older guy. I think he's got a cush job with the SEC. That would be a high pressure job. He's had the heart problems. He basically retired from Duke. I don't think that's a good thing to do at all. Now, David weighs in. Brent Hubbs and Austin Price are sports journalists and media personalities. Nagy and Simmons are scout and personnel evaluators. Well, I understand that. But ultimately, don't you think they're turning? I mean, here's how I see Barton Simmons' role or Nagy's role. I think it's to hand over tape that you found of a young man and say, I think this guy can play. And by the way, Adam, don't hire whoever passed over Patrick Willis. Well, that was John Chavis. And I don't think he's up for the job. So,
by the way, but to be fair, we keep making that joke about whoever passed over. Everybody passed over Patrick Willis, honestly.
Ole Miss didn't.
Ole Miss couldn't shoot high. They weren't in a position to shoot high. Was it David Cutcliffe or Ed Orgeron that went for Patrick Willis? I can't remember.
I think it was for him, wasn't it? I think it was for Cut.
No. It wasn't before Cut. Cut.
Well, help me with that. But I believe that Brent and Austin know enough about football where they could do it. I mean, again, I don't think you're going to be making the final decision. I don't think they go to Barton Simmons and say, Barton, I'm really nervous. Should we offer this dude? No, I don't think that's happening. I don't think, what's his name? Clark Lee? His name escapes me all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to Barton. He goes, I got these 2 3-star dudes in Smyrna, and I've got to offer one of them. Barton, you make the final call. I don't think that's what's happening. I think they bring stuff to him. He makes the final decision. You still would have a director of player personnel, which Tennessee has. The other name that I would offer up there would definitely be John Adams for GM. There's no question about it. That is exactly who should be the guy.
John Adams. Really?
Yeah. The other guy I would throw out there would be Scotty Altizer, who is, I think, currently the director of player personnel. Perhaps that's an ability to elevate him. He's been a loyal soldier, and I think he does a fantastic job for Tennessee. But my question is, do you go the unconventional route? Now, Nagy and Simmons, I don't know if they played football. I don't think that Austin and Brent did. But again, I don't think my heart surgeon has to have a heart attack in order to work on my heart. So I don't think you necessarily have to play football. Now, I will tell you this. If you keep him sober, Adam comes up with a good one. Orgeron for GM. That would be the perfect job for him. He was a great talent evaluator.
Okay, the way we talk, I agree, and I'm making it. David Cutcliffe's a big exception to what I'm about to say. David Cutcliffe and the non-media members. But it seems like talent evaluator is not necessarily the prerequisite for being smart. Because there's another layer to this GM thing, and this is why you and I talked about Jeremy Pruitt not doing it. You have to actually know math and be able to lay out salaries. How is can you trust Ed Orgeron to mathematically project salaries and what you can afford?
Now, again, I don't know exactly how this role is going to be determined.
About 35, about 42, carry the one over here. We got about this much more to play this guy. This much to play this guy.
What's up, Hook? Let's pay $1 million. Bring safer. I don't know exactly what this role is. How much is it dealing with numbers? David says I watch tape and see who's a good player, but I'm not a coach or scout. Yeah, I could go through tape and I could see a guy and say he can't play. Throw that tape aside. And I've told Caleb this before. And I could see a guy like Robert Kimdichie. I mean, when you saw him at camp, you're like, that's a dude. And you would definitely take that tape and say, you got to offer this guy. It's, again, those 3-star guys that are high 2s or low 4s that you have to judge and be a little bit more discernible about. And I believe that, again, I will say I believe all the guys we've mentioned could do that. Both Altizer, he might be the best fit for it, and he's already in-house. And I think Brent and Austin would do a great job. I think if it's purely down to talent evaluation, maybe you call Ryan Callahan from 247 Sports. But Ed Orgeron would be fantastic. If you absolutely know that he wouldn't get in trouble, he would be very good. But Marlon Walls' grandmother has serious concerns about him.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, when he's
where's the bourbon?
Oh no, it's Marlon Brown, right? Marlon Walls did end up going to Tennessee.
Oh, Marlon Brown, excuse me, the receiver.
Yeah.
John Adams told me like 15 years ago, he said, names are going to start running together in your head. Oh, wow. Unsung. Gold, Jerry Gold. Bringing the heat. Gruden for GM.
Does Gruden scout talent well? I mean, is that? I mean,
oh. But this would be a job where he could work more along the lines of 40 hours a week instead of recruit all the time, which he was never willing to do. And he led you guys on and teased you for the better part of a decade. All right, so let's make the new poll question. Let's go Gruden, Cutcliffe, Austin Price, Brent Hubbs. What about that?
And no Jeremy Pruitt or Ed Orgeron?
No, they're not going to bring Jeremy Pruitt.
Why Ed Orgeron and no Jeremy Pruitt? Like, who's smarter between the two, honestly? Who's got more brain cells?
Orgeron, but he's got more demons.
You think Orgeron is smarter than Pruitt?
Coin flip.
Could Orgeron be a defensive coordinator? He can be a defensive line coach. Can he be a defensive coordinator?
Yes.
You think he could?
Yeah, I think that he and Lance Thompson pretty much handled the entire defense when
not Monty Kiffin.
Well, I think that it was a triumvirate after Chuck Smith threw out 15 defensive tackles.
No, that was after Monty Kiffin left. That was Justin Wilcox's defense.
Oh, okay. Let's run all together. Back in the gym this morning and on my power energy drink, so I was struggling a little bit. All right, let's make that the poll question.
Okay, John Gruden, David Cutcliffe, Brent Hubbs, Austin Price. Lord. How about this?
Lord.
How about this? Wait. We'll put Brent Hubbs or Austin Price together because like it's kind of like they're the same type of profile. You know what I mean? And I'm going to throw mine. I'm going to do Jeremy Pruitt or Ed Orgeron.
Do I get any say in these poll questions nowadays?
You got most of the say. You threw out John Gruden, David Cutcliffe, Brent Hubbs, and Austin Price. I just added a segment for Pruitt and Orgeron. Okay? So...
And well, here's why it can't be Pruitt. And it can't be Orgeron. Pruitt cheated, and Orgeron tried to undermine Tennessee in their incoming class in 2009.
Yes, and also but so what? I mean, look, Ed Orgeron though. Oh man, the idea of Ed Orgeron on a college campus and not having to actually coach. I mean, that's like remember.
Too bad the Strip is turned into a residential area.
Remember the joke people said back in the day? It's like if Hillary had become president, it's like, could you imagine Bill Clinton in the White House with nothing to do?
Man.
I mean, this is Ed Orgeron on campus with not that much to do. I mean, what do you think we're going to get?
Oh, I think you should join our intern program. That's the best I can do with Bill Clinton. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. And I've got news. People have been giving me a hard time about when are you going to purchase your Bronco, Dave? Today's the day. An overnight test drive, but it's not a Bronco. I got a surprise for you that I'll tell you about a little bit later in the program, and it's hot. Even Paris Hilton says
that's hot.
When she
got it back. He's got Paris Hilton back.
That's right. All right. So
he's tried to lure Ed Orgeron to Knoxville.
Who Paris Hilton did?
No, Dave's trying to lure.
Wait, we didn't get Gruden in there.
Yeah, we did. We
Okay.
have Gruden in there.
Okay, who's our four again?
Gruden, Cutcliffe, Pruitt or Orgeron, since they're interchangeable, and then Brent Hubbs or Austin Price, since they're interchangeable. Because no one who, like, if Brent Hubbs is an option, all due respect to Austin Price, no one's going to say Austin Price because Brent Hubbs has done it longer. So if you're going that route, you're not going to pick Austin Price over Brent Hubbs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you're kind of being a little mean to Austin Price.
No, Austin Price is his protege, so like people are like Brent Hubbs has been there longer. So that's not a knock on Austin Price. It's just Hubbs has done it longer.
Okay, let me ask you this. And Julia Hurley, who is a realtor in the Knoxville area, pointed this out on my Twitter. Do they really need one, or is it just a way to spend more money? I think they need one.
They absolutely need one. No. There's not even, like, honestly, they need one more than they need on-field staff members. I'd reduce my staff before I didn't have hire a GM, if I'm being honest with you.
All right, coming up this day in Tennessee sports history. Also, spring practice preview. The Vols offensive line is on tap. As I remind you, we're represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. 2 minutes off the hook sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
We'll do it.
A guy with a lot of jobs, but this one is the most important.
This is not government work. As such, I treat it with care and attention.
Until someone else calls. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, welcome back to the program. This day in Tennessee sports history is coming up. I want to remind you that portions of the program are brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. That's hooked for 10% off. Also want to thank our friends Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. HDKnoxville.com. You can use the promo code HOOKED there as well. And if you become a member of the channel, then you will receive a welcome gift, which is a gift certificate to Hound Dogs. So you can use that with the discount. You'll be looking pretty special, pretty good. So we thank Hound Dogs of Knoxville Again, hdknoxville.com. Stat of the day is brought to you by our fantastic friends at Newbert Collision Center.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
Here's a stat. For nearly 50 years, Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. I can attest to that. Newbert Collision Center, JoeNewbertCollision.com. Stat of the day. What do we got, Caleb?
Tennessee has, with the winner, not on Tuesday at LSU, but the basketball program this past Saturday when they beat Texas A&M, that was their 5th victory over an AP top 15 team this year. Now, they've done that 3 of the past 4 years. They never did that before then. They had never done that, and now they've done it 3 of the past 4 years. Dave, I want to point this out real quick. We're not talking about this enough. So Zakai Ziegler and Jemai Mashak were freshmen in the 2021 class. In terms of actual on-court team success, they're going to go down. They're on track to go down as the most successful 4-year players in Tennessee basketball history. Not even a close second. Yeah. There is no player. They've accomplished everything that a Tennessee basketball player has possibly accomplished in the past. They've gone as far as any Tennessee basketball player has. They made it to the Elite Eight last year. They won an SEC regular season tournament title. They've won an SEC tournament title. They've reached number 1 in the rankings. The only thing that they haven't yet done is have a 30-win season, but there's a very good chance they'll have that this year.
Yeah, they're not as good as Ernie and Bernie. They're not as good as some other guys that I've covered as far as duos, but the production is hard to argue.
It really is. It really is. It's and if they get to the actual encore production is incredible. And also this is what's so, I will say this, I get the frustration, and we're going to talk about Rick Barnes a little bit later, but guys, perspective, what Rick Barnes is accomplishing at Tennessee, no coach, even Bruce Pearl, came close to this during their time at Tennessee. Nobody's come close.
Give us an update on the poll question, Caleb.
Who should be the Vols GM? John Gruden, David Cutcliffe, Jeremy Pruitt or Ed Orgeron, and Brent Hubbs or Austin Price.
So do you have 3 choice? I don't know how you broke it.
Jeremy Pruitt and Ed Orgeron is one choice, like one because they're interchangeable. And then Brent Hubbs or Austin Price is another one because they're interchangeable. And then John Gruden and David Cutcliffe separately.
Okay. I bet Cut's winning.
It's a tie. Gruden and Cutcliffe are basically tied by a plurality at this point. Now Cutcliffe is taking the lead. He's up 38%. Gruden's 31%. Pruitt or Orgeron is 19%. Hubbs or Price is 12%.
Interesting. Take a moment, hit that like button, the thumbs up button as we get to Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com.
Where do you stand? Hot or cold? Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. 50 years in East Tennessee. Cityheatandair.com. On Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Hot or Cold, a preview of Tennessee's offensive line, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. We're going to end this conversation with a conversation about, are you hot or cold on Tennessee's offensive line as a whole? But before we do that, let's get to some individual parts. And Caleb will have a column on this up on offthehooksports.com later today. Churning out like 8 pieces of content a day, so you got to check it out. All right, let me start with Lance Hurd. Are you hot or cold on Lance Hurd, who was cold to start last season, hot to end last season, basically in halves, and I think that was because of the ankle sprain.
I'm hot on Lance Hurd. I'm coming along with Lance Hurd. The ankle sprain. Look, we talked about how slow he was moving last year, and it's like, okay, well, if you have a high ankle sprain, you're just naturally going to move slow at tackle. That's just how that works, isn't it?
Yes.
So, yeah, and he came along at the end. I had no issues with him at the end of the year. So, yeah, no, I'm hot on Lance Hurd.
Okay, David Sanders at the other tackle is probably projected to play right tackle, but I wouldn't be surprised if they flipped Hurd over to right. They've done this before and put Sanders at left. I don't know why they do it, but they do. And David Sanders, I mean, he's a recruit, right? So
that's hot.
Everybody's hot until you go out there and flub it up.
He's Tennessee's highest rated recruit per number since Eric Berry. Eric Berry had one of the greatest freshman seasons of all time in Tennessee football history. So yes, I'm expecting that from David Sanders.
Larry Johnson III would be, I believe, the first string backup tackle. Hot or cold?
I'm cold. He should have been. He wasn't ready last year. I'm not so sure he'll be ready this year.
Okay. Wait.
That's hot.
I'm actually hot on him. I may be overly optimistic about this offensive line group, but I believe they're going to come into their own. I really do. So you don't have Andre Carrick at left guard because he wasn't able to win his appeal for an extra year. So he's off to the NFL, I guess, or the AFL or whatever he's going to do.
AFL? What is this, 1965?
No, the AAFL, right? Isn't that what it's called?
You said AFL.
Oh, yeah. Anyway.
Wow, Dave. Someone's old.
Yeah. You know what I like is that, what was it called? The other basketball league? Can't remember.
The ABA?
Yes. I was a big ABA guy. I'm kidding. I don't remember those times. Sham Umarov.
I'm cold on him. I'm cold on him. I'm sorry.
I got to be cold on him too because he hasn't ascended the ladder yet. But I believe that at the end of the day, we'll be talking about him making another step. I say end of the day, end of the season. Sorry to throw a cliche in there. Now, you know where I stand on William Satterwhite.
That's hot.
I'm with you. Keep hearing he's a good, smart, physical player. As a matter of fact, somebody in Tennessee's program said he reminds them of Cooper Mays. I don't know that you could give a better compliment to a center.
That's an amazing compliment. But I've seen coaches compare players to greats of the past when they're trying to make a point. I will never forget Philip Fulmer being like, I think Eric Ainge has many of the qualities Peyton Manning had as a freshman at Tennessee.
I want to add this too. Why is Cooper Mays not at the combine?
I do not believe so.
Okay, because I feel like a doofus because I said good luck this morning, and he's probably wondering good luck at what? Rolling out of bed and working out. So, yeah, I feel kind of stupid for that. I deleted it, though, so maybe you won't see it. But I don't understand why he's not at the combine. That's bizarre to me.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right, we'll do it, Coop. All right, so to the rest of the offensive linemen.
Well, you missed a couple key ones. You missed the transfers.
I'm not done.
Okay, all right.
Wendell Amo Jr. at theoretically, I'm thinking right guard, most likely. I can't be hot on him. I mean, he comes from Arizona. I just don't know that he's going to be able to handle the rigors of the SEC.
I think you have won me over on this because he didn't adjust to the system last year when they changed coaches at Arizona. And so he was an all Pac-12 freshman. And then the veer and shoot, that was in a pro style offense. Then they brought the veer and shoot last year with Dino Babers, which is actually similar to what Josh Heupel runs, and he had a massive drop off. So I don't know if I think he's just a body, and I don't know if he's able to handle the tempo that Heupel runs.
Fair. Okay. So then the other transfer, Sam Pendleton from Notre Dame.
I'm high on him. I'm very hot on him. He actually, people think he lost the starting job. No, he didn't. He actually overperformed as the starter. It's just there was a guy penciled in ahead of him before the season, and then he got healthy, so they put him in. But I'm high on Sam Pendleton.
That's hot.
You're not high, you're hot.
I'm hot.
It's brought to you by the Hemp House, you'd be high. It's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Are you high or now you threw me off. Are you hot or cold on this offensive line? I'm going to tell you exactly what I think after a quick message from City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Okay, I talked myself through it, and I guess I spoke it out loud here on the show. I find myself hot on Tennessee's offensive line. Am I being overly optimistic offseason, Dave?
Maybe. I find myself in that situation where you were swimming in a cold pool, then you jumped in the hot tub, and then you get out. And whatever you feel when you get out after doing that, I'm that. Because I'm cold in some areas, hot. In some...
You're referring to shrinkage?
No, that's only the cold water.
Oh, okay. Is that like in the hot water though?
I don't know if the hot water causes it too. I have no idea. All I'm saying is whatever the mix is, whether you go from the cold water to the hot tub, I'm whatever you're feeling when you get out of that.
That's hot.
I'm hot on this.
Is that her response to shrinkage?
Yeah, I would say, or non-shrinkage. I would say this: if they had Carrick back, I would definitely be hot. I want to say, like, what do you set your thermostat on, Caleb?
I set mine at 70.
Okay. Some people set theirs a little bit higher, like at 72. I'm probably at 70, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. So I'm hotter than most who would set their thermostat at 68 or 69 degrees, but I'm not up to 72, which is actually how I like it. Take a second to hit that like and subscribe button. Caleb, are you hot or cold on Glenn Ellerby?
I'm hot on Glenn Ellerby in terms of arrangement, in terms of arranging the offensive line. I'm cold on him in terms of developing the offensive line. I need to see more.
I'm actually hot on him. I don't feel like we give him credit for salvaging Lance Hurd and what could have been a lost season. I feel like we give him credit for Darnell Wright. We just say it's natural talent. Well, Darnell Wright wasn't on anybody's draft radar before Ellerby got a hold of him. I got to be honest with you. I'm pretty hot on him.
We're gonna have to see. I'm still mixed. I think his arrangement is good, but I'm not so sure his actual development is good. That's what we need to see more of.
Okay, now I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to give you 3 Coop traits. And what Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Okay, there's leadership. There's just the ability, and I know that some of these are going to meld into each other, but there's leadership. There is the ability to get the offensive line in the right position at tempo, boom, boom, boom. And then there's just his physical play. How would you rank those 3? That's tough. Matter of fact, I'm going to have to think of it. 1, 2, 3.
Wait, so leadership, the ability to get him in the right position, and physical play. And how would I rank those 3 for a lineman?
No, how would you rank those 3 that Coop brought to the table? And as far as what Tennessee will miss this year?
Oh. Leadership. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Literally the way you named it. Not that he's not physical. He's very physical, but leadership, the ability to get him in the right spots, and physical play in that order. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, it's like a 1A, 1B, 1C.
It really is.
It really is close. I would go leadership, his play, and then the ability to get Tennessee's offensive lineman in position. Because I think that Nico Iamaleava will be able to do some of that, Caleb, and you'll see that shine through if William Satterwhite isn't completely adept at it. Adam says, if he refers to the offensive line, another way to look at that, Darnell Wright didn't get noticed until Hendon Hooker became his quarterback. Tackles get blamed for poor quarterback play. Fair. So was that more about Hooker or was that more about Wright? I think it's
Wright. Adam, what you're forgetting is Hendon Hooker was one of the most sacked quarterbacks in college football in 2021. And then in 2022, they flipped Darnell Wright to right tackle, and Hendon Hooker became one of the least sacked quarterbacks in college football. So it wasn't just about Hendon Hooker becoming his quarterback. It was also it was very much Darnell Wright moving to right tackle, and then being able to get Gerald Mincy and Jeremiah Crawford to alternate at left tackle.
Yeah, Travis throws in there, and I can't confirm this, but Travis seems like a very astute poster in the message board. Nick Saban went to Huntington High School to recruit Darnell Wright. His coaches were convinced he was going to Bama. Let's not forget that Nick Saban was also from West Virginia. So that's probably a little tug in his heart.
So also a big win for Pruitt to get him out of West Virginia. And you can say they paid him, but the truth is we know that's not true because all the players that they paid for Tennessee to comply with the investigation, they basically forced them to transfer out of the program. So
yeah, I think Derek kind of hit it right here. Tennessee football could go nuclear in either way. Defensive line turnover and offensive line turnover. Secondary will be young, no experience or depth, no proven wide receivers or depth. Not looking good, honestly. I think
there's a range of 7-5 to 11-1. Like last year, I said the range is 9-3 to 12-0. This year, it's 7-5 to 11-1.
Can't argue with that. If you had to pick between 7-5 and 11-1, what would you pick?
I would pick 11-1, but I'm not confident about it. I'll tell you that right now.
Portions of the program brought to you by Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com, QualityTirePros.com. Tell Bo that Off the Hook Sports said hello. Off the Hook Sports always likes to say, hey, Bo. Hit that like and subscribe button if you don't mind. Where's our poll question? Do we have Brent Hubbs as the GM of Tennessee football yet?
We do not. The poll question has David Cutcliffe leading by a plurality.
What's a plurality mean? What does that word mean?
So if it's a plurality, it's like you have the highest number of all the numbers, but you have the highest compared to a higher number than anybody else, but you don't have a majority. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes.
So like your 33% is higher than anybody else's percentage, but because it's not above 50%, you don't have a majority.
Okay. I might chuck that word. It's a confusing word, but
no, it's not. You just need to learn vocabulary. Someone failed Wordly Wise over here.
You threw out dynastic, which is still something that John Wilkerson and I joke about. We text each other dynastic every once in a while. That's a great word. All right. So where does Hubbs and Austin Price rank?
Hubbs and Price are at 17%. Gruden's so Cutcliffe 33, Gruden 29, Pruitt/Orgeron 21, Hubbs/Price 17. Yeah. So
it's not looking good for those guys.
Can we do I actually agree with something I saw up a little higher up, like when someone said hire Pruitt and Orgeron at like Step Brothers. I want a reality show of Jeremy Pruitt and Ed Orgeron just hanging out. They need to be roommates at a college. They need to be roommates like somewhere, just like, like you have the Paris Hilton thing. Remember like that Paris Hilton Nicole Richie show, The Simple Life, when they were roommates? Like you need Jeremy Pruitt and Ed Orgeron as roommates.
I would watch that. Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. Why? Listen, I love Rick Barnes. I think he's very underrated in Tennessee's fans' eyes, but I don't like what he said about Chaz Lanier, and we're going to get to that cut a little bit later in the program. Also, the NFL Combine begins. Who will perform best for the Vols? That'll be Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Timothy with a super chat that goes to Quincy Calhoun's college fund. Timothy says what, Caleb?
Says, I'll put it out there. Negative Vols are going to start crying about blowing up the staff if they go 7-5. I mean, you're all right, Timothy. Here's one of the reasons, though. And
listen, if they go 7-5, Joey Halsey has to be replaced. I'm just going
to. But here's one of the things about college football coaching that, Dave, I don't think we talk about enough. And this is what hurts coaches a lot. Coaching kind of works like the stock market. And just bear with me. And here's what I mean by this. If a business's stock prices fall for like a few days, but they still have good cash flow, like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. More people are then going to pull their stock out of the business, right? And then it's going to take more. And then more people are going to pull, and it's going to take more. It's the same with coaches. If a coach has a bad season, it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that they're going to fail, because what happens? The media narrative is that they had a bad season. That gets into recruits' ears. So fewer top-notch recruits commit. So their recruiting classes suffer. And then they fall and fall and fall. This happened to Philip Fulmer, right? The narrative of Philip Fulmer slipping hurt him on the recruiting trail.
Yes, it's absolutely true. Something I want to put in your pipe and smoke it, or in your back pocket, and we'll attack it tomorrow. You don't know the pipe and smoke it? Stuff that in your pipe and smoke it. Is this.
That's not the right
Nico either performs well enough to go to the NFL or performs poor enough that he has to leave to save face. Tomorrow, I want us to lead it off. Today's tough questions, unless something newsy happens, that's what I want it to be. Will Nico go to the NFL because of his play or because of his ego? I love that one.
Or because of his father.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
That's what I play when I feel uncomfortable with Caleb, because I know Mr. Iamaliava is a big fan of the show and he listens, and I get emails from him all the time like, why is Caleb being so damn hard on me? And I'm like, I don't know.
I really try not to make a hooker feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I just yeah, exactly. I just just pay up front. I think that's the key. All right, so the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Guys, I got to tell you about my new vehicle that I'm purchasing today, and it's from Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on Parkside Drive and on Kingston Pike. They're absolutely the best. They're East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. Please support our sponsors. We greatly appreciate that. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike supports local and wants to make sure that when you drive your vehicle off the lot that you are completely happy. And we've all had that remorse at times. When we make a big purchase, you're not going to have that at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. I was there yesterday, and the customer service, Aaron Rodgers was there, by the way. Did you know Aaron Rodgers works at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln? Not the same Aaron Rodgers. But
okay.
Yeah, give Aaron Rodgers a call if you want I don't know, maybe a Jeep. 2 minutes off the hook sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. I got a bone to pick with Rick Barnes coming up next, as this is Off the Hook Sports.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7
Your Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Here's hoping when Tennessee opens spring practice. Is it March 7th or March 9th?
I think it's March 7th because, well, wait. No. I think it is March 9th.
Here's hoping they beat the hell out of Nico Iamaleava. I'm serious. It's time to have a physical spring camp. You've got time to heal up. I know you're going to go soft on him in preseason camp, but I just got an issue with Josh Heupel and his lack of physical practices. I think that his notion is to be a little soft. By the way, and yes, Nico Iamaleava has me blocked. Game No Bueno said, if Nico hadn't blocked you, I'd say you weren't doing your job. Listen, I'm telling you, they need a physical practice. We talked to the 98 team for the book. And by the way, you can purchase that online on offthehooksports.com. If you want to drop a link in there, that'd be great. What did they do before the 98 season? They held a really physical spring camp, and the quarterbacks were allowed to be hit. I think Nico's going to practice better if he's hit. Do you risk injury? Sure. But at this point, shouldn't he be 225, 230 pounds, Caleb, and have the ability to take hits? I'm not saying that the practices usually run Monday, Tuesday, Saturday. I'm just throwing that out there. Monday, Tuesday are kind of a setup for a Saturday scrimmage. I'm not talking about 3 a week as far as physical practices. I'm talking about that Saturday, that scrimmage needs to be physical.
Well, I'm mixed on what you're saying because Nico's not a great runner, so I don't know how much they're going to use him to run. See, with T. Martin, if you remember now, they kind of abandoned it after 3 games, but they tried to introduce the option into their playbook early on. Now, it didn't work. I don't know why. They just never were able to run it right. But they were – that's why they needed T. Martin to get hit. They were literally trying to introduce part of the option into their repertoire. So they needed him to get used to being hit. I don't think it's necessary.
They didn't run the option more than 15 times that season.
That's why I said they abandoned it after 3 games.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, no, they abandoned it after 3 games straight. T. Martin was not great at running it. So it just and the offensive line wasn't built to run it.
Travis says nothing worse than going soft.
That's hot.
As probably a reference.
I don't think Paris Hilton finds that hot.
As probably a reference to shrinkage earlier in the program. It is time for This Day in Tennessee Sports History, and it's brought to you by Sports Treasures. I'll tell you more.
This Day in Tennessee Sports History.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Timothy asking me, what did you do, Hooker, to get yourself blocked? Players are mentally weak today. Amen to that. It's actually more their parents. I don't think it was Nico at all. I think his dad runs the Twitter account.
I actually don't find it mentally weak. I'll just be honest with you guys. Like, I in principle, I don't block anybody or anything. I let people say whatever they want. I kind of feed off it, but like some players to try to stay focused that could get addicted to Twitter, they need to tune out Twitter and block any mentions they get.
Hey, you think I'm joking, but I would have a flip phone like Carson Beck did.
I would too. I mean, like, I would not be involved with Twitter. I don't think Twitter is good for people if they can't like handle it. I mean, we see this with full-fledged adults that just get addicted to it and go straight down some Twitter rabbit holes. And I mean, look, I'll just say it up front. I'm not trying to be like old buddy. I think Lane Kiffin's a little bit. I don't think he has control over his Twitter addiction. I think it's gonna consume him before. I think it'll consume him before he consumes it.
It's better than another addiction he could possibly have. All right, Caleb. This day in Tennessee sports history. The ladies. I'm referring to the ladies.
I sound like Michael.
You're
Irvin.
telling me that good-looking guy. That good-looking, successful guy likes to lay with ladies.
That's hot.
Are you telling me that's the case?
Well, at this point, he's just successful. Lane Kiffin's a heck of a lot bigger than he used to be. I'm just saying.
I didn't think he looked big at SEC Media Days.
I think Lane Kiffin's face is a lot bigger than it was when he was hired at Tennessee.
His Wikipedia picture is. Other than that, I think he looks pretty good.
So,
right. Yes. This day in Tennessee.
This day 16 years ago, Tennessee basketball.
Let me set it up real quick. Brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures. Go to facebook.com, follow in Sports Treasures TN. The link's right below. They have incredibly fun stuff going on all the time at Sports Treasures. North Knoxville, stop by and tell them that Off the Hook Sports sent you. What do you got, Caleb?
15 years ago today, Tennessee managed to upset Kentucky when Kentucky was ranked number 2, 74-65. They did it even though they didn't shoot well from 3. They were only 6 of 25. But J.P. Prince, the guy who couldn't shoot his way out of, I don't even know what phrase to use, but like, he ended up leading the team with 20 points. Scotty Hobson scored 15, and Tennessee beat Kentucky with 74-65. This was the Kentucky team, Dave, that had DeMarcus Cousins, Eric Bledsoe, and John Wall, and they were ranked number 2. Earlier that year, Tennessee had beaten number 1 ranked Kansas, so they beat the number 1 and the number 2 ranked team in the same season that year.
The UPS Store Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated. The link is right down below. Owned and operated by Tennessee fans and Tennessee family, former Vol. They're involved as well. We thank Denise Douglas, and stop by and see them. The link right down below. They can take care of all your promotional needs. All right, Caleb. Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Life made better. Member FDIC. The NFL Combine begins. Who will perform the best for the Vols?
Now, this isn't who's going to gain the most, but this is who's going to perform the best. I think of the group that's going to perform the best for the Vols, believe it or not, Dave, I think Dante Thornton Jr. is going to wow people with his physical attributes if he's fully healthy.
Okay.
I thought
I can roll with that one. I thought you were maybe going to go along the lines of Omar Norman a lot. I think he's going to perform really well. I think James Pierce is the X factor, isn't he?
James Pierce is, yeah, but like, okay, so just so people know, Brew McCoy, Dante Thornton, Dylan Sampson, James Pierce, Omar Norman, and Elijah Simmons are the 6 going to the Combine. James Pierce is the X factor. I think James Pierce is going to perform well. I do think James Pierce is going to perform well. I don't think his physical stature is going to blow people away. I think James Pierce is somewhat of a guy you got to plug in a bit of tape to see him play. And the Combine tape is not a factor at the Combine. Omar Norman Lott is going to show flashes in certain areas, but not in others. And so I think that's going to be an issue. Elijah Simmons will be the opposite. I don't think Elijah Simmons' measurables will be good, even though his physical abilities will be there. Dylan Sampson will be fine. I'll tell you this. From the worst, Brew McCoy is going to have the worst Combine. He's not going to have a good Combine. I have all the respect in the world for Brew McCoy. I think he's a gamer, but he's not a Combine guy.
Well, it's Simmons if you want to talk about the guy with the biggest variables. If he shows up at 315 pounds, he is going to absolutely change the way that NFL GMs look at the defensive tackle position. That they will have him flying up the draft board. If he shows up at 335 pounds and weight was a struggle while at Tennessee, then he's just going to be average and be 3rd or 4th round. But the bottom line is he is a very athletic big man, and those guys usually don't fall very far below the 3rd or 4th round. If he shows up at 310 and he does some of the things that I think he can do, it wouldn't surprise me if he's 2nd. Man, I think there's that much of a variable. If he shows up at 350, you remember Mondre Dickerson?
Yep.
Okay, I remember Mondre Dickerson showing up at a pro day, defensive tackle, and he was like 330. And Cedric Wilson, former ball receiver, ran up to him and goes, "What are you doing, fat bleep? You're so bleeping fat. What happened to you? Don't you know this is pro day?" And Mondre goes, "Oh, they wanted me to show up bigger." And he goes, "No, you didn't, you fat bleep." Because he showed up at 335. Had he showed up at 310, he probably gets drafted. I think that's where Simmons is. He shows up with the right weight and he's been able to do everything right. Then I think he's a fast riser. If he shows up at the weight that he was at Tennessee, I think there are questions about his dedication and ability to play at that weight, Caleb, because let me ask you this. Of the 2 players, which was most disappointing, Elijah Simmons or James Pierce?
Elijah Simmons. James Pierce still impacted the game last year in a significant way.
I agree. And I think James Pierce was a little disappointing for one season. I thought Elijah Simmons was disappointing throughout his career, right?
I agree. I'm still higher. So you're leaning Elijah. I'm still higher on Dante. So the most official clocked 40 time for Dante Thornton is 4.63. However, at Oregon, he was reported to have run a 4.43. And in unofficial times at different points, like all season workouts, he has reportedly gotten as fast as a 4.3. Dante Thornton is 6'5", 214, Dave. If he runs a 4.3 40 at 6'5", 214, he shoots up to a first-round draft pick at receiver. I don't even care if he can't run routes or anything. They're going to fall in love with him just for those measurables, aren't they? A 6'5" guy that runs a 4.3 40?
If he runs 4.3.
Yeah. So I think I watched Dante. You watched him last year. I do think he leans on the faster side, don't you? And
yeah, I think his speed was probably a little overblown when he came to Tennessee.
I mean, that's why I was so high on him. I thought he was the 4.3 guy, and I thought it was like Kevin Durant joining the Warriors, him joining this offense. But to be fair, he battled injuries off and on when he was at Tennessee the whole time.
Yeah,
And
but I don't know if he's ever going to be a 4.3 guy. We'll see. I just wonder if.
But even if it's 4.4, what if he clocks 4.4 at 6'5"? That's still first round draft pick.
No, that's something. I mean, he has the size. I'm not saying he has the ability. I'm not comparing, but he has the size, and that would be the speed that would get you compared to a Randy Moss type, a guy that can go up and make big plays. So I thought it was disappointing that Tennessee didn't throw him a jump ball a half when he was healthy.
I agree. By the way, and I meant to ask about this. Who needs this combine the most? Because you mentioned Elijah Simmons, and I would agree, but in terms of, I was going to say James Pierce. I mean, the talk on James Pierce's personal issues and his character, I think they're really unfair. I didn't feel like James Pierce. I never felt like James Pierce was taking plays off last year when I was watching him. And
what's funny to me is you've got people saying James Pierce could slide in the draft because he didn't talk to the media. Darnell Wright didn't talk to the media.
Yeah.
That's not going to affect you. They don't care if you talk to the media or not.
And players are opting out of combine. Players are straight up opting out of combines now a lot of times. So, I mean, not talking to the media. James Pierce was dealing with a lot last year. I think it was probably smart for him to not talk to the media, don't you? Given everything he was going through personally?
Yes.
And
I can't share all that I know, but I've shared it with Caleb. It's about as bad as it gets.
I agree. It is. And so Pierce wants to keep his head down, do his job, and go get paid to do his job in the pros. I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, like when he's an edge rusher, so we don't have to be a leader of a team. He's kind of the quiet type. So, yeah, he's there to do his job. I got no issue with him saying, I just want to do my job.
Bank on It brought to you by Commercial Bank member FDIC. Life made better. I was just there this morning. Do your banking with Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
All right, Caleb, a couple of comments from the message board. And Game No Bueno just posted they pulled a hammy. Did Pierce pull a hammy at the combine? You might want to Google on that and see if we can find that. That would be terrible for that young man because that would definitely drop him into the second or third round after being projected as the #1 overall pick. I mean, if you pull a hammy at the combine and you're not able to address it during a pro day that Tennessee will have later on this spring.
There's no information about him having a hamstring injury.
Okay. So. I hope not. I hope that's not the case. All right. So Pierce didn't have the stats. I don't think that NFL, one of the things that I would argue about NFL scouts and NFL coaches is that they don't care enough about the stats. So while I agree with you that you should have, you should weigh that more heavily, Travis, I don't think that that's happening. I think a coach, an ego coach, looks at a guy like Pierce and says, I can make him into the next Lawrence Taylor, and I don't care if he didn't talk to the media or had personal issues in college. That's how most coaches look at it, and I've talked to them about it, scouts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. And I think coaches now, I think James Pierce is at a level where these drawbacks aren't really going to hold him back, honestly. Like, it's not like no one has questioned his effort. That's why the personal character thing bothers me. It's not like Jadeveon Clowney, who people did question his effort. And I mean, Steve Spurrier remember when Steve Spurrier kind of accidentally let slip that Jadeveon Clowney was lazy before the draft? And I mean, and he still went #1, but that was so funny because I'm like, Spurrier is the most honest coach of all time. He's not a liar. So
was he a disappointment?
Oh, yeah. Jadeveon Clowney was a total disappointment.
Yeah. You know why? It wasn't because of lazy. It was, I had a really good source at South Carolina tell me that he had serious toe issues. And you think that sounds funny? Oh, you got toe injury? Actually, your middle toe and your big toe are responsible for pushing off. And it's the same thing that ended Deion's career. It's the same thing that ended Heath Schuler's career. When you have a dislocation and possibly a fracture of the socket of your big toe, sorry, there's nothing that medical science can do about that.
You
They
know,
can
it's
fix an ACL and they can do all this stuff, but they can't reassemble your toe joint.
It is so funny you say that because I hate when people say this player did something tough and this player didn't. And it's like, but do you use that muscle? So just to give you an example, I remember Chris Bosh one year missed a game with the blister on his middle finger, which, as you know, Dave, when you shoot the ball, it comes off your middle finger, right? And so he had a bad blister on his middle finger. So he was out of game. And that same day, a hockey player played with a broken jaw. And I saw people like, oh, this is why hockey players are tougher. He played with a broken jaw and he couldn't play with a blister on his finger. It's like, yeah, but you need that finger to shoot the ball. Your entire ability to be effective is gone with that blister. You don't need your jaw to play hockey, honestly. So
I'll go ahead and tell you, I dislocated my shoulder and I've never had a broken jaw, but I think I would rather have a broken jaw with well, maybe not. I talk for a living, but
yeah, you don't want a broken jaw.
Yeah, I don't. But going to the gym this morning was not pretty
But I'll tell you what, I'll tell you this. Given what I do for a living and given what you do, people think this is crazy. I'd rather have a broken leg than a broken finger because I type all the time.
Well,
I know that's crazy. I'd rather have a broken leg than a broken finger.
Well, you're talking to somebody who broke a pinky not too long ago. It's funny how walls don't hit back. But
well, you don't have to type much with your pinky. But like imagine a broken middle finger and a broken ring finger, Dave. You can't type.
Yep.
And like everything we do is dependent on our ability to type. So like, no, I'll tell you guys right now, I'd rather have a broken leg than a broken ring or middle finger any day of the week. Also, I can't flip Dave off when I'm mad at him if I have a broken finger.
That's what he does all the time. I just get random bird. Work Truck's all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down. Has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting about time. Work Trucks saves you time, less back and forth trips, and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process is quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an app how to work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special. If you're a contractor, got to know Work Trucks. WorkTrucksLLC.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. They will get you outfitted and make sure it fits your needs to a T. All right, so we do not have James Pierce pulling a hammy. That's good stuff. And Derek says that Dad used to tell me you don't hit stuff that doesn't hit back, women and walls.
I don't know who told you women don't hit back. I'm kidding.
I was watching old James Bond clips. And I'll tell you this, Barbara Walters is interviewing Sean Connery. And he goes, I would never punch a woman, but I'm not saying that she doesn't deserve a good slap now and again. I mean, said that during an interview.
I know that story.
This is like early 80s. I mean,
maybe he was talking about types of slaps she wants in the bedroom.
This show's just absolutely gone off the rails. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. And when it comes to a fantastic vehicle, you got to go to Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike. I was there yesterday. The buying experience is going incredibly well. Overnight test drive, and I think I'm all set. I'll be down there this afternoon. I'll have the news of what I purchased tomorrow. And they've got the certified pre-owned vehicles, and they've knocked all kinds of prices off them. It's the end of the month. So if you want to drive off the lot feeling good about what you purchased, Ted Russell Ford Lincoln.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is your Super Dealer, just in time for Truck Month. Save up to $5,350 on this new Ford F-150 XLT Hybrid, or save up to $7,000 on this new Ford Expedition. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford.
Like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Travis says, and he's joking, don't hit your women. Equal rights calls for equal lefts. I wanna read that.
We have the
I wanna read
ball.
that in my Sean Connery voice. Travis says equal rights calls for equal lefts. I'm not saying she's not worthy of a slap now and again. Yeah. Nobody's hitting women. Come on, let's be serious for a second. You disappoint me in what you're doing. I tell you what,
Urban Meyer would let his players hit women.
encouraged it. Actually, I've been told.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, go ahead and give her a good slap. That'll shut her up. All right. Is Rick Barnes being too nitpicky? Heck yes. Do we have a clip of this? Him talking about Chaz Lanier?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I had it and lost it. But hold on, I'll be able to pull it up.
Go ahead and pull that up. I got other things to talk about. You just do what you got to do, and don't feel like there's a show going on or anything. Just whenever you get to it, that'd be great.
Really, Dave, really.
You got to check out Brainerd Golf Course and Brown Acres Golf Course in Chattanooga. You can just click down below and schedule your tee time. And I'm telling you what, they are fantastic golf courses that you will love, and also very affordable. All right, what's our clip from Rick Barnes? So Rick Barnes was asked about Chaz Lanier getting, was it 8 or 9 rebounds?
It was 9 rebounds.
Okay. Rick Barnes was asked about Chaz Lanier getting 9 rebounds, which is pretty impressive from a guard. And here's what he had to say.
Well, let me pull the quote real quick. I don't know what is going on, Dave. I really apologize. This absolutely happened out of nowhere.
That's okay.
So let's just get to this.
Dave Sean Connery voice sounds like Jim Carrey's Grinch voice. Really?
Dave Sean Connery.
The other one I can do is the guy on Dateline 2020, Keith Morrison. You know who that is? DNA.
Did you know that Matthew Perry was his stepson?
Kay?
Yeah. Do you know Matthew Perry from Friends?
Yeah, Kay.
What is
ketamine? Kay.
Oh, he was hopped up on ketamine?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
That's what made him slide into the hot tub and take a little nap.
Yeah. So,
so we don't have the clip.
We do. I got to re-pull it to where it was because it reset on YouTube. That's the problem I'm trying to pull now. So I'm trying to listen to it while we're talking. Funny enough.
All right, you go ahead and do that. 2 minutes, and then a comment from Rick Barnes that I found very disappointing with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off Thug Sports.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American-made. Ted Russell Ford is your Super Dealer, just in time for Truck Month. Save up to $5,350 on this new Ford F-150 XLT Hybrid, or save up to $7,000 on this new Ford Expedition. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Ginger your power. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, he's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, BanksandJones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Caleb, I got a problem with Rick Barnes. By the way, the show taken off like nobody's business. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. As a matter of fact, the one, the only Cooper Mays would like to remind you to do that very thing.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thank you. All right, Caleb, I got a problem with Rick Barnes. Do we have that clip ready?
We have it ready. And this is in response to Rick Barnes being asked about Chaz Lanier having 9 rebounds against LSU the other night. So this is what Rick Barnes had to say when he was asked about that. You guys ready?
I'm ready.
Let's roll.
We like the fact that Chaz is doing that, but he needs to work harder to get about 8 more shots a game. And to do that, we want to get him more shots, but again, LSU I thought did a great job defending his first actions and what we were trying to get him into. And we were sloppy. We had some chances. I think that we could have probably got it to him with cleaner passes, but we didn't. But again, you always have to give your opponent credit for that when it doesn't happen. But Chaz is more than a shooter, even though I think we know he's a terrific, stand still, spot up shooter. But when he wants to drive the ball, he's proven he can do that. And the fact that you mentioned his rebounding, that's something he didn't do very much at the beginning of the year, and he's trying to impact the game different ways.
Okay, first of all, he is not going to take 9 more shots per game. He took 11. So you're telling me he's going to take 20 shots per game? That's too many. Second of all, here's a chance to commend one of your top players who I think has had a slightly disappointing season, Caleb. Not hugely disappointing. Still, I pointed out, I think he's in Dalton Connect shadow. Connect 4-time weekly SEC Player of the Year. Lanier 3-time. So I think he's undervalued and underrated by some Tennessee fans. But I just don't understand. This is a comment you make in December, Caleb, when you want to poke a guy and you want to get him going. This is not a comment you make who's trying to find his stroke, trying to find his confidence and taking it to the rack and finish like Connect did. This is not a comment you make heading into March.
All right, let me play the other side of you for a minute, because I actually might disagree with you a little bit. On 2 fronts. One, I don't even think Chaz Lanier has been disappointing this year. I think he's had a slightly disappointing SEC season, given what he showed us before SEC play, but in the conglomerate of what we thought he'd be, I think he's actually been better, particularly since Starling Stone-Dubar didn't pan out to what we thought he was going to be to help out. I think Rick Barnes sees Chaz Lanier as a scorer, and he wants Chaz Lanier to do more to score the ball. This isn't anything new. Now, maybe it is something you say in December. As we know, Rick Barnes didn't get 4 years to work with Chaz Lanier. He's only gotten 1 as a transfer. But I distinctly remember after Chris Lofton had an All-American season in 05-06 and was clearly a better three-point shooter than J.J. Redick that year, what did Bruce Pearl do? And Tony Jones, who's been on a show, they went to Chris and said, you've got to learn to put the ball on the floor. You got to put the ball on the floor. You got to get to the basket because teams are going to learn to play you otherwise. And Chris Lofton responded. I think Rick Barnes is saying here, Chaz has got to put the ball on the floor. Chaz is taller and quicker than Chris Lofton. Why doesn't he put the ball on the floor more and drive to the basket to manufacture buckets?
I don't think he likes contact. But that you should have seen.
That's a problem.
Okay,
that's a problem.
You should have seen that when you're evaluating him. You should have said, got us a spot up shooter, but don't have a connect.
It's hard to determine that because let's just be honest. There's not a lot of 6'9" to 7 foot guys at the level Chaz Lanier was playing with. So he may not be scared of contact under the basket from a 6'5" guy. Maybe he doesn't like contact from a 6'9" to 7 foot guy. But he's got to be able to embrace that contact. You're a scoring guard. You can be a spot up shooter. You've got to be able to get to the basket some. And I think Rick Barnes is frustrated that Chaz won't get to the basket. He's been pushing this all year. Rick Barnes had to pull Chaz Lanier in January coming out of to open the second half because there was a play for Chaz Lanier to go to the basket and score, and Chaz Lanier passed up the shot. I mean, that is, look, it's been my issue with Chaz Lanier the whole year. He's not aggressive, and he doesn't show it the way he needs to. And that's why Rick Barnes has to go to Zakai Ziegler in crunch time.
Okay, but at some point you have to play the hand that you've been dealt, and you need to build him up. Matt says Rick has been preaching that all year about Chaz. I get it, but this is after he showed effort in getting 9 rebounds and was still the leading scorer as Tennessee got the win at LSU. Timothy says players are getting weak nowadays. Now, maybe perhaps if we can be realistic about this, Chaz Lanier is the star on this team. Is he as big of a star as Connect or as big of a star that you would like? Maybe not. But Chaz Lanier is the star of this team. I want him going into tournament time, which begins next week, right?
Yes.
Okay. I know it's SEC tournament, not the same thing. I want him going into tournament time with the highest level of confidence possible. I think this is another example of Rick Barnes being too hard on his guys, running him down. And I know that Rick Barnes's practices are extremely competitive. I would argue too competitive at times. And I know that he says all of this, the things that he says publicly, I've talked to people about this. The things that he says publicly, he says to the players firsthand. But again, the World Wide Web, the World Wide Interweb, his family's going to read that. It just creates a big opportunity for a distraction. And I just thought it was out of line.
Okay. If Rick Barnes was saying that Chaz Lanier had this turnover here that was a problem, or he needs to be tougher on defense, or, is grinding him defensively like this late in the season, I would agree with you. He wants him to shoot more. The late Gene Hackman just passed away. The scene everybody's sharing from Hoosiers right now, the movie he was in, I think is the stupidest scene. It was like, this is such a great scene. It's so amazing. Principles over this. And I think it's the dumbest scene in sports movies history. RIP to Gene Hackman. But it's the scene in Hoosiers where Gene Hackman has the rule of you have to pass 4 times before you shoot. That's how my offense runs. You pass 4 times before you shoot. There's a player who's hitting every single shot up the court. And Gene Hackman pulls him and puts him on the bench because he's not doing the 4 passes before he shoot. That's not what Rick Barnes is saying. Rick Barnes is saying, be that guy. He's giving you the green light. He's like, shoot, score. I want you to score, because guess what? 4 passes before shooting would be the dumbest offensive strategy in the history of basketball. Okay, so that's why it's a dumb movie. But score. He's giving you the green light. He's sitting there saying, when you have the ball, drive to the basket, shoot it, create shots. What he's really doing, Dave, is trying to develop Chaz Lanier into an NBA prospect. That's what he's doing.
I hope that there's a kindred relationship there. I hope that it's like a father-son thing, because I would be troubled if I'm Chaz Lanier's family. Just the fact that they absolutely keeps hammering at home. Travis says maybe Rick expects more because Chaz can give more. Well, at this point, why do we think he can? I mean, this is not November. This is February, late February into March. Adam says hard coaching isn't public criticism. I'd have to hear it for myself, but it seems a bit much. Okay. Maybe I did not think I would be in the minority. I thought everybody would. Okay. So let's set it up as a poll question.
I've already set it up. Is Rick Barnes' criticism of Chaz Lanier not taking enough shots is nitpicking or good coaching?
Okay.
I think it's good coaching.
Okay. We'll tell you where that stands as we broadcast, and represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. And I'll tell you about my car tomorrow, as I'm going to go ahead and finalize that purchase. Yes, Caleb?
Yeah, I want to address, because, you're saying if you're Chaz Lanier's family, you'd be upset about this. The biggest reason Chaz Lanier committed to Rick Barnes is he wanted Rick Barnes to develop him into an NBA prospect with a year left. That's why these stars at the lower level are committing to Rick Barnes. If that's the case, it shouldn't matter if it's November or February. You're wanting Rick Barnes to turn you into the NBA prospect you want to be. Well, that's what he does.
I don't care if he turns Chaz Lanier into an NBA prospect if I'm a Tennessee fan. I want him to turn Tennessee
into the best team it can be heading into March. And Caleb, I don't think this serves that goal whatsoever.
Yeah, but you said if you're Chaz Lanier, you'd be upset. Chaz Lanier wants to go to the NBA. This is how you go to the NBA. I mean, they're not going to Dave, if you're an NBA team, Chaz Lanier's 6'4", and it's not like the sharpest sharpshooter of sharpshooters. You're not taking Chaz Lanier as a spot-up shooter, are you?
No, but let me ask you this, Caleb. Did Vincent Yarbrough ever become aggressive?
No, and that's why he didn't become one of the best players in NBA history.
No, I agree. But at some point, you had to realize that that's just not who he is.
Well, if that's not who he is, he's not going to have a successful pro career. And this team's not going to be successful.
Who cares?
And this team's not going to be successful. They can't be successful unless Chaz Lanier is aggressive.
Okay, I would be pumping him up absolutely every chance I get. I would absolutely be pumping him up and telling him how great he is. And I don't understand not doing that. I just don't get it.
I'm sorry, but I don't think that's the best way to go about this. They need Chaz Lanier to go all in on. I mean, they need Chaz Lanier to be as aggressive as possible. I mean, they really need to take him. They really need him to take it personally. So,
this question from Unsung Dave: how many guys have you covered that could have been stars but gave mediocre effort in their career? Like 500.
And then there's some that gave no effort, like James Pierce. Not James Pierce. Not James Pierce. James Banks. James Banks.
He would probably be number one in my career. He would probably be number one.
NFL talent.
Yeah, I can't come up with. I'm sure there's a big guy. We think of big guys a lot because sometimes they carry too much weight.
Well, and it's hard to measure effort on big guys because big guys give a lot of effort. They just aren't mean enough. They can't turn on that mean streak that you need.
Right.
To turn
Now,
on.
Matt also, thanks for this, Matt, says, Chaz quote yesterday, I just want to get a lot of praise to Coach Barnes. He's poured a lot of time and effort into me and a lot of love. He's somebody who I hold very dearly. And just the amount of love that he pours into us is very special. I'm not saying it's going to create an issue, but I'm just saying that I would be wary of the timing of it heading into March.
Wary of the timing of it?
Yes. You're just all about beat the players into the park.
No. If he was grinding him defensively, fine. No, he's saying what he's saying in this is we need you to shoot the ball more. And okay, I'll give you an example, Dave. You know what? Because you're a Celtics fan, you'll love this. Remember the 2011 finals meltdown LeBron had against the Mavericks? That's one of the most embarrassing finals performances I've ever seen from a superstar. Yes. The next year, they're in the Eastern Conference Finals, and LeBron plays like garbage again in Game 5, and they lose to the Celtics. Remember that? And you're a Celtics fan. You probably do remember that. Remember how much heat LeBron got from the media after that, and how people talk about how weak he was, how pathetic, how soft he was. What did he do after that? He went on the greatest playoff tear I think I've ever seen a player do. Mm-hmm. It was late in the season, but he needed to be beaten down.
Adam says, why didn't Barnes ever get on Josiah Jordan-James' case in public over being too passive on offense? Amen to that. Maybe it's because, okay, I'll give you credit, message board. Maybe it's because he sees more out of Chaz, and he knew that Josiah Jordan-James was a little bit limited in either his skill set or his mental approach to the game. I'm not saying he's dumb. I'm just saying the aggressiveness. Barry said, and I wanted to get to this actually. Barry said, who would y'all try to get as a head coach when Rick Barnes retires? I've got my answer to that, and I'll share it with you right after this. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, broadcasting from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer, Off the Hook Sports. 2 minutes, and I'll tell you exactly who I would hire when Rick Barnes hangs up the sneakers. Or what does he hang up? The whistle? Was it coach hang up?
Probably the whistle, right?
They use whistles anymore? 2 minutes off the sport.
Like a blast from the past, the super dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is your Super Dealer, just in time for Truck Month. Save up to $5,350 on this new Ford F-150 XLT Hybrid, or save up to $7,000 on this new Ford Expedition. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Here we go. This was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Who would you hire when Rick Barnes retires? Before we get to 4 downs, talk some potential rule changes in college football. Who would you hire? I got mine. You ready?
I'm ready.
Tennessee's going to see him on Saturday.
I would not hire Nate Oates. I would not touch Nate Oates. Not even touch him.
Because of the gun issue?
Yeah. Yes, because of the gun issue. Yeah, no, I would. I'm dead.
I like how you had to think about it for a second, and then you eventually just went with the gun issue.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I couldn't do that. Tennessee has already had way too many issues in the past. I might now. Danny White might hire Nate Oates because Danny White likes to hire his guys, as we've seen. But
and for those that don't know, how's Oates his guy?
Danny White discovered Nate Oates before anybody else did. He discovered him out of my mind is drawing a blank. When he was at Buffalo, believe it or not, of all places. I'm sure this is the thing. Danny White's going to find his guy before anybody else does, and it's going to be your typical up and comer. And we just have no idea who it is yet. But here's the thing: it's going to be a guy that runs an up tempo, fun style of basketball. We have no idea. Danny White's going to find him before anybody else does. You can straight up bank on that.
Will Tennessee win more games in the 4 years after Barnes retires than the final 4 years of his career?
Well, if this is his last year, the final 4 years of Barnes' career, they'll win more games because this is the best 4-year run Tennessee basketball's ever had.
Yep. And comment on the message board. I agree, Dave. I want Oates. Thank you. And then Nate Oates looks like a Vegas bookie. Well, not a North Knoxville bookie, because that guy doesn't look so great. He looks like he's struggling. The guy at my gym, it's got all the gambling things coming out of his pocket. I'm not even sure he's still with us. He didn't look the most healthy in the world. And yeah, that's what we get in North Knoxville, the PAL area. That's the kind of bookies we get. 4 downs is right now. And I want to remind you, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Kim Caldwell could do it.
Coach the men?
Yeah, sure.
No, I think I'll tell you who's going to go for probably is
talk about a little NIL.
I think he might go for Ryan Odom, the coach at VCU. Ryan Odom was the coach at UMBC when they beat Virginia a few years ago as the 16th
Boy, we are
seed.
really projecting ahead. Rick Barnes still has the job. Do you think he'll retire for this year?
Do I think Rick Barnes will retire after this year? No, I don't.
I got kind of a weird hunch you will.
Come on, guys, it's game time.
4 downs. Can you count? 4 downs. 1, 2, 3, 4. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb, set this up. There are 4 things in future formats that the SEC wants that they can't have. Can you explain this to me?
No, it's not that they want that they can't have. It's that none of put it these things. These are 4 things that the fans want, okay? That they can't have all 4. The SEC fans want the SEC to go to a 9-game schedule, right?
Yes.
They want the SEC to have an annual Big Ten challenge where you have big non-conference matchups in the regular season, right?
Yes.
They also want to keep the traditional rivalry games, right? With Florida, Florida State, South Carolina, Clemson, those, right?
Sure, absolutely.
You cannot have all 3 unless
all 4.
No. Those are 3 things I named.
Okay.
I'm getting to the 4th.
Okay.
You cannot have all 3 unless the SEC is guaranteed a minimum number of automatic qualifiers in the college football playoff in the next round of negotiations, which also no fans want. So you got to pick. Do you want the automatic qualifiers or do you want to get rid of one of those other 3 things? If you're a fan. Because here's why. The SEC, if you're Florida, Dave, would you ever agree to a 9-game SEC schedule and a Big Ten challenge when you're still trying to play Florida State every year? That's 11 games either against an SEC team, Florida State, or a Big Ten team.
Yeah, that doesn't seem ideal.
It does.
Again, I believe we just have to have a different committee, and they swap over every 2 years. And you have to have a committee that values a tough schedule.
Significantly values it.
Yes. I mean, right now, goodness gracious, Indiana, come on. Hey, what team? Even Tennessee, with the schedule they played, I know it's an SEC schedule, but an 8-game SEC schedule, that's just not, I don't know. The schedule to me, I think you probably, those that have listened to the channel, and please hit subscribe and like, but those that listen to the channel realize that I think Tennessee's fans are getting shorted by the schedule. Caleb disagrees and says, make it easier, make it as easy as possible, but I'm not so sure.
Well, would you... Oh, you're going to do 4 downs on this?
4 downs.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right, Coop.
Coop here. First down.
All right, so I'm going to ask you on these 4, how important are these to you? A 9-game schedule. This is incredibly important to me. I think it would clear up all this Nebraska canceling series and other schools canceling series, and you've got a tough schedule from the get. Sign up 3 patsies if you want. I would like at least 1 to be maybe middle of the pack, but with the committee as it is, that's not going to be the case, and I don't blame you. But 9-game schedule, I'm all about that. More SEC football, sign me up.
If you care about properly crowning a conference champion, then yes, I'm for a 9-game SEC schedule. I think it's key. But for the sake of the SEC right now, no, I'm still for an 8-game schedule. I think the setup is okay. Now, I still like the idea of 1 Power 5 game, 1 non-conference Power 5 game, which you have to do, or Power 4, I guess. But look, if you go to a 9-game schedule, Dave, I think you're going to ditch Power 5, not Power. You're going to see teams ditch Power 4 non-conference games.
All right,
and I
Coop,
kind of want to see more of those.
Coop, where are we now?
Coop here. First down.
Thanks, Coop.
No, it's 2nd down now. That was first down.
Did I play the wrong one? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Cooper Mays here. 2nd down.
Sorry, just reset the board. Annual Big Ten Challenge games.
So obviously there's 16 SEC teams and 18 Big Ten teams. So a couple of Big Ten teams would be left out. I want to see them. And because of the because I'm not high on the 8 because I'm against the 9-game schedule, I want the annual Big Ten Challenge games. I'm for it. And the reason I'm for it is because, again, but I'm not for it with the 9-game SEC schedule. I'm not. Because
so you're taking one or the other. Which would you take?
I would take the annual SEC Big Ten Challenge.
Yeah, I just think the Big Ten's not as deep as the SEC. So the 1 through 4 games, 1 seed, 1 seed, 2 seed, however you do it, there's going to be 4 that are exciting. There's going to be another 6 that are just, ugh. All right, Coop.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
Traditional rivalry games. Florida.
Non-conference rivalry games.
Non-conference rivalry. Florida, FSU, South Carolina, Clemson. The Florida FSU matchup used to be my favorite. I will say there was a point in my life where my favorite thing to watch in college football was a matchup of two of the 3 Florida schools and the Duke, North Carolina basketball game. Because I just felt like they never let you down. Does it not seem like they always lived up to the billing? Whereas Michigan, Ohio State didn't, and they would overbill that. So, but it doesn't have that feel anymore. And the South Carolina Clemson game, that's an in-state thing. I don't have a problem with ditching these traditional rivalry games for either a 9-game schedule or a Big Ten Challenge series or both.
How is Dave so much older than me, and yet I am so much more of a traditionalist in college football than he is? I don't want these. No.
Grown jaded.
No. I want these South Carolina, Clemson, Kentucky, Louisville, the Governor's Cup, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Florida, Florida State. I don't even care the rivals are one-sided. No, I want those SEC, ACC rivalries, man. That's something I live for. I wish Tennessee and Virginia Tech played every year, honestly.
It's a possession down. Where do we go?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Okay, I'm all about this. No minimum number of automatic college football playoff qualifiers, but I can go ahead and tell you this is not going to happen. There will be a minimum of college football playoff qualifiers from the Big Ten SEC. That's fact.
Yeah, I'm totally against it, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And by the way, when it does happen, that's going to make the other 3 things possible. And I'm going to tell you something else, Dave, that's going to be interesting. What do you think about this with the minimum automatic qualifiers? Here's how you make the non-conference games matter. Josh Pate laid this out to me, and I never thought about this, but he's right. You can still make those non-conference games matter. You know why?
Why?
What if you didn't do the 4 automatic qualifiers just based on who finished in the top 4 in the SEC standings? What if each conference had their own AP poll voters who ranked the top 16 teams in the conference, just ranked them in a human poll rather than who has the best record? So you could take the non-conference games into account.
I don't hate that. General Ursa says if we don't go to 9 conference games, then Sankey should at least pass a rule that everyone should play at least 2 Power 4 teams and shouldn't be allowed to schedule FCS opponents.
Why would Greg Sankey pass that rule?
Well, he has passed a rule for 1, but I don't know why he passed it for 2.
Yeah, you're just hurting the payout for SEC schools at that point. I mean, no, he's not going to do that. And guys, I'm trying to insist this to you guys. These FCS games, they keep those FCS programs afloat. They do.
Who cares?
I like to see I like to see.
Listen, I lived in Chattanooga. Their own fans didn't support that football team.
But it still is a good way.
Why should the SEC support that?
Because because athletics is an opportunity for kids to get into college, particularly kids who can't afford to go to college, get an education.
Oh, come on. They don't even go to school anymore, Caleb.
The Chattanooga football players absolutely go to school. Maybe not the Tennessee football players, but the Chattanooga football players do. Okay? So athletics is an opportunity for so many kids from so many rough backgrounds to get a ticket to college to get out of their situation. And I don't want to see that go. And if that's FCS football being a thing, and people do watch some of those FCS games. I watched the FCS national title before.
Game No Bueno will leave us with this. Dave is a heretic. I don't think so. I just think I'm all on it. I'm on point today, feeling good. And Caleb's doing the best he can to keep up. He disagrees with everything I say, but he ends up wrong. And do I have any insight that Rick Barnes is going to retire? No, just a weird hunch. And a comment on the message board that when Zakai retires, when Zakai leaves, he would retire. I'm not sure that I would base it around one player, but that is a player with pretty good leadership that you'd be losing. And
I mean, Rick Barnes has said that Zakai is the guy that keeps him coaching. Zakai plays the exact type of way Rick Barnes wants a guy to play because he can live with the stupid mistakes. He loves the effort.
For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Offthehooksports.com is a great place to go for a fantastic read. Be sure and hit that like and subscribe button. We appreciate you more than you know. Have a fan.